Hi friends, it's Mari here for the Hip Kit Club. I'm going to be creating with the December 2021 main kit today. This is the project that I'm going to share the process with you today. And this is one of the pattern papers in the main kit. It's just this beautiful snowflake, and then on the back a really light blue floral. I've cut that into a circle and I've sewn around the edge of that circle. I've also cut that dot and navy paper again from the main kit pattern papers into strips. I've cut that paper into strips, and I've also sewn on the top edge and bottom edge of that paper. And what I'm going to do now is just trim off those little threads on that paper there, and I'm going to use those as a focal area sort of on the right side of my project here. I also wanted to distress the edges of all of these papers, these paper strips here, so you can just see I'm going to work on distressing those before I get them adhered down to my cardstock base. I am using a piece of the powder blue cardstock from the cardstock kit for the base of my project today. And I've taken this plaid paper also from the main kit, and I'm going to just tear it into a kind of a curved edge there. I wanted a little bit of detail down at the bottom of my project, and so I'm going to achieve that with this plaid paper, which is so gorgeous. Just going to fold the edge of that paper over a little bit just to create that little bit of extra texture and dimension on my project. And then what I'll do is I'll just take this paper to my trimmer. I'll trim a little bit of the bottom of it off. I didn't want it to be quite that wide at the bottom of my project here. And then I will adhere that down at the bottom when I'm ready to do so. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of placement of where everything is going to be placed at this point. So I'm just laying that torn paper at the bottom. I'll place those strips over to the right, and then, like I said, I'm just working on kind of getting a feel for where I want everything to be on the project before I commit to sticking things down to that cardstock base there. So really love how these soft colors in this kit just all work together so beautifully, and they just go so nicely with this 3x3 black and white photo that I have for this project here. So I wanted to just overlap that circle over top of those strips on the right, and then use that bow for my main sort of embellishment here. I'm going to start putting those strips down with a little bit of foam adhesive on that right edge. I'll talk a little bit about that large bow for my project here. The main prompt for this project today was to create an origami piece, or pieces, create some origami of some type for the project. And I've never really done a lot of origami before, I have to admit. I don't know if paper folding is my strength, but I did find this bow pattern, or this instructions for creating this bow on the internet. Just I googled it to create some origami, and it came up with this, and I thought this is perfect for this photo that I wanted to scrapbook, and I just like how it turned out. So yeah, it worked out. Now I did sew on the top edge, that torn edge of this paper as well. I was just showing you that there. So there's lots of machine stitching on my project that just creates that little bit of extra detail and texture. It really does add some nice just a little bit of extra pizzazz to your project when you have that little bit of sewing. And you can just see here I've used foam adhesive on those strips on the right all the way down, just to bump them up a little bit and give them a little bit more dimension as well. So there's lots of texture, lots of distressed edges and so on this project. I really love that. I do that, I feel, on the majority of my scrapbooking projects. I also really like to do that with my card making projects too. I just feel like it adds some nice texture to the project. So I'm just going to make sure that that torn paper edge is underneath the strips, and I will overlap the strips over top of that torn paper. And yeah, I just think that looks kind of fun and interesting. Now I'm going to double up some foam adhesive to just get a little bit more dimension on this circular piece here, so that it's just a little bit higher than those strips on the right. And now I'm just going to start to work on some photo mats. I'm just going to use some pattern paper strips that I've already cut from, that are, you know, the colors that are in other areas on the layout, and I'll just mat the photo on those pattern papers, again just distressing the edges with my paper distressing tool. I also wanted to use some the front side of this blue paper. Of course, that's the back side of that is the snowflake paper that's in the circle. Such a pretty color. I just love it. The really soft blues and pinks and peach and so on in this kit are just so stunning. So really wanted to create more texture too with this layer by adding a little bit of tissue paper in there as well, and then again some paper tearing. So both of those things will just create more texture in that photo mat. I did actually end up adding a little bit of the backside of that dot paper, so the navy blue. I added a little piece of that to my photo mat layers as well. So when you see the photos, the still shots of this project when it's all finished, you'll see that I did add that little bit of blue into the photo mat. And I don't remember if you see that in the video or not. I don't think so, though. I think that was an afterthought. I just thought that adding a little bit of that navy in the photo mat layers just made the photo pop a little bit more off of that really soft and light background, which, I mean, I always want my photo to be the thing that you notice the most in the project. So I think that that really helped to achieve that. So you can notice that in the still shots of the project. And again, just distressing the edges of the paper in those photo mat area, just to create that little bit of extra texture. Now I am going to use one of these little sentiment strips or phrase strips from the die cuts in the main kit, and I think this says picture perfect, and I'm going to add it over top of one of the little tabs that's also in that die cut pack. I'll just go ahead and adhere that to this little tab with a little bit of foam adhesive just to bump it up a little bit as well. And then I'll add that to the side of the photo, which I think is always nice to have a little something like that to help ground the little cluster area that is going to go in that spot. So just use my tweezers to help me apply this to this tab. It's kind of a small area, so I always like to use my precision tweezers when I'm doing stuff like this. And then I'll just take some adhesive when I'm ready and add that to the side of the photo. Now I thought this little die cut bow was also really sweet, just because it, again, repeats the bow theme. The little sweet little girl in the photo does have a big bow in her hair, and there's bows on the fireplace in the background. So definitely lots of bows going on. And so I'm just going to get the photo stuck down here, and then I'm going to use one of the chipboard frames that's in the main kit to add on the underside of that little bow, kind of like a spot to frame that bow in on the layout. So I'm just using my T-square ruler here to make sure that I have that photo on straight. And I wanted the photo just to be a little bit over to the right, not perfectly in the center of that circle, just to justify it over a little bit, because that bow is quite a heavy detail on the project. And so I did want to make sure that I balanced that off a little bit just by moving the photo over to the right a little bit. So I'm going to add that bow onto the tiny little die cut bow to the right of the photo there, just with a little bit of foam adhesive as well. And then I'll add a few more die cut pieces over to that area there to complete that cluster. And I think the die cuts I use are some of the snowflake pieces that are in the die cut pack in the main kit. And they're just so pretty. I love them. All of the colors and everything just work together so beautifully. So really pretty, just love it. So soft and definitely wintry, right? Because like the icy blue and that soft pink, and yeah, it just kind of has that nice sort of wintry feel. Now this is that chipboard frame that I was speaking about. I did put a little bit of foam adhesive in the bottom left corner of that piece just to bump it up a bit, and then I'll add this origami bow that I folded with a piece of 6x6 pattern paper from the kit. It's that plaid and peach paper, I believe. And now you can just see I'm going to add a few more little die cut bits over to the right there. And I've also added the title using the puffy alphas from the main kit, spelling out the word magical, which I was trying to think of a word that was long enough that would fit that curve. And I've added a chipboard heart to the center of my bow. And I also wanted to add some of these little really blingy enamel dots. Those are actually from the November kit, but I didn't have any sort of like little blingy pieces from the main kit that I could add. So I just cheated a tiny little bit and added those enamel dots in. But if you didn't have enamel dots in your stash, you could add almost anything to add a little bit of bling. You could add some of your you know, some of your glitter glues or whatever, and that would suffice as well. So here you can just see I've added some little puffy stickers from those ombre puffies up above the word magical as well. And now I just took a piece of that dot navy paper, I scalloped it with my scallop border punch from We Are Memory Keepers. And I wanted to just create kind of a division between the left and right side here with something darker, just because I felt like it just needed a little more dark color there to balance everything off. So I stitched through that scallop border piece as well with my sewing machine, and now I'll just adhere that on that line between the two parts of the layout. I just like that separation there. I just think it kind of really brings the focal point into that circle and the photo. Now I just matted the navy pattern paper and a piece of white cardstock together here, did a little bit of stitching at the bottom, and that is going to be where the journaling for the project is going to be. I'm just holding it up and looking to see if I like that, and I do end up adding, once I have my journaling on that white cardstock there, I add some more of those little blingy enamel dots just above to kind of fill in that little curve area there. And I also added some of those enamel dots to those little puffy stickers above the word magical. And I've also added some stitching on my blue cardstock in the top left quadrant, I guess you would say. Now to finish off, I want to add some white splatter. And I'm going to use my Dina Wakley gloss spray as I do, because I love that stuff. It is so dimensional. It's bright white. It dries fast. It's perfect in my opinion and for this job. So I'm just going to use a fine brush from my stash to splatter some white splatters on here. This is going to be really textural. I love how it finishes off the project, and that's going to finish up my layout today. So I do have a still shot at the very end here, so you can see again the close-up of the layout when it's all finished. I had so much fun with this. The December hip kits are absolutely rock solid awesome. I love them. They are so beautiful, and they are just so much fun to create with. I can't even express how much I love those kits. They're so beautiful. So I will link up to the hip kit in the description box below, so you can check that out, see how you can become a hip kit member and get some really beautiful exclusive products from hip kit. Thanks friends. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.